Hello everybody, my name is Crackcrusader, and welcome back to Crusader Reviews. And today I will be reviewing God of War Ragnorok. Now in God of War Ragnorok you play as Kratos, and sometimes Atreus. That's kind of a spoiler, but I'll give it to you. It happens here and there. And it's another growing up story where both characters are trying to learn what's right and wrong as they develop more as a person and as a father slash son. Now, my opinion on God of War Ragnarok is that I've heard a lot of stuff on the internet about people saying that Kratos is weaker than how he used to. They've made Kratos bad or anything and everything. I don't think Kratos is necessarily bad, he's just changed. Kratos is no longer filled with the anger that he once was. Although sometimes you get to see that still shine, he is no longer filled with it. That's no longer his only personality trait. He's got more than just this anger and this need to kill things. Now, my problem with the game is that, well, I have a few problems with the game. My first problem is that in 2018, Kratos seemed to show that he was already pretty good with his nature of wanting to destroy everything. He seemed to have came to grips with it. Now, I mean, to be fair with Balder, he did just kind of kill him, but in God of War Ragnarok, he's willing to kill gods for the same reason that he killed Balder. He killed Balder to protect Atreus. And to protect Atreus... Oh, okay. Balder's main mission wasn't to necessarily kill Atreus. It was to basically kill Kratos. But if Kratos were to die, Atreus would have been without a father figure, and that's why Kratos had to kill Balder. And so in some weird way, he is still protecting Atreus by killing Balder in 2018. And you still see him like willing to protect Atreus by killing gods, only it's a little bit different this time because gods aren't necessarily trying to kill Kratos or even Atreus. They're just trying to... I don't know if I'll get into spoiler territory or not if I say this, but basically they're just trying to... Kratos is just trying to make sure they don't teach Atreus anything, or Atreus doesn't go to being with the Aesir gods. Because almost all the Aesir gods have been proven to be just awful people. That's the gist of it. They're just almost all awful. Not everyone is bad, but the decent bit are. So that's my one problem, is that Kratos as a person or as a character has seemed to relapsed kind of into how his old ways were, where in 2018 he had a pretty good check on his emotions. In Ragnarok, Kratos loses it multiple times. Now, some of it is very just, like when he's dealing with Atreus, because as we all know from 2018, if you played it, Kratos gets mad at Atreus for lots of stuff, lots of things that Atreus does wrong, or what Kratos deems wrong, he gets mad at Atreus for. Where in God of War Ragnarok, he is not only getting mad for that, but he's also getting mad for almost what it seems like he's going back to where he was back when he was in Sparta, and when he was a Spartan god. He seems to be kind of relapsing from like the days in Sparta to Ragnarok, which is just weird because in, like I said, 2018, he did not relapse at all. He was just this person. Moving on to another problem I had with the game, the skill trees for your Blaze of Chaos and actually for all your weapons, I didn't care too much for it because it just seemed like they got rid of a lot of the upgrades and made it a lot less, made the combat a lot less not necessarily bad. Like a lot of the combat's the exact same. Actually, I believe every skill is just the same from the first game, which is fine. But it feels like they're missing stuff because with where you had a rage skill tree in God of War 2018, there is not a rage skill tree in Ragnarok. To upgrade your rages, which you get a few different variations of your Spartan rage that you can use, and they do different things. The Spartan rage seems to be more of a like when you upgrade it, it's just you just dump like EXP into it, and it just does its skill more or better or something like that. Like there's one skill called Valor when you slam your weapon on the ground or whatever, or like do your little rage animation, you get health back, and when you upgrade that one just gives you more health when you use your rage. Which kind of sucks because the whole rage skill tree was a lot of fun in 2018 because there's a lot of stuff you could do with it. Where in this game, when you raged, you just kind of became this R1, R2 spam. That's all it became. It was the same in like 2018, but again, there was some more combat there in 2018 than Ragnarok, which saying is a little weird. And at the same time, it does make sense for Ragnarok as it is more story focused than gameplay. You are playing Ragnarok. Ragnarok almost feels like kind of like you're playing through a like 14-hour or 12-hour movie because of just how much cutscenes there are. The game is filled with like cinematic cutscenes and just cutscenes in general. Like probably over half the game is probably, or not, maybe not half the game, but a good probably 40% of the game is cutscenes. Like you'll be sitting in your chair a lot watching cutscenes, which that's not necessarily a bad thing, just the difference between 2018 to Ragnarok. Now getting into the good parts of the, or not the good part, but keeping with the stuff I didn't like, the boss fights, the game's pacing was kind of bad. Like how they, like when you fight bosses and everything was bad, poorly done. Because you probably go through like 8 hours of the game not really fighting a big, like another god, except for when you fight, this is a little bit of spoiler, but it was, I believe in the trailer, and by this point, most people would have probably seen it. Right at the start of the game, just like in 2018, you fight an Aesir god. Only because you killed Baldur in 2018, you're fighting Thor at the start of Ragnarok, basically. But you only fight Thor once more in the entire game, and that's not till right at the end of the game. And you also don't kill another Aesir god till basically 2 hours before the end game. So if this game's like, it's supposed to be like 16 or 14 hours of just gameplay or whatever, like of the game. So you're spending about 10 to 14 hours not doing any like Aesir god boss fights. Like there are other boss fights in the game, but the real reason I'm playing, like the real reason I want, like the real things I want to fight aren't necessarily these giant like behemoths of like animals or these giant like Aesir legends, because there are a few kind of goddish things you fight in the game, but they don't hold up to the power or the sheer fun that you have when you're fighting an Aesir god. And the fact that they're all just kind of mushed together right at the end feels very poorly spaced out. Like I spent half that game, probably like half of Ragnarok was probably me just being pretty bored, just playing through like doing the normal story, which not necessarily that I was bored, but I was really hoping for me to fight like one of the Aesir gods way earlier than when you get to fight them at the end game, and it just kind of blew. Just waiting for so long to fight something that was so cool kind of sucked. Including when there's about, I think, 3 or 4 boss fights just kind of strapped together really quickly. Moving on to the things I did like. There is another weapon in this game, so you do have, where I said that the combat wasn't too new from 2018, I kind of lied. It is and it isn't, because everything else that already existed in 2018 is there. There's just one new thing, and by the time you get it, it's also past half the game. They're only using that weapon, like you only have it for about 4 to 5 hours until you finish the game. So again, it seemed kind of just weak to me, just like not the weapon itself, but just the pacing. It seemed really off with the weapon. But you do get another weapon, and it has an all-new skill tree, an all-new set of skills, which was cool to see. Including with the weapon, how it works. It is cool. Moving on to another thing I liked. Playing as Atreus. You get to play as Atreus in this game, and I think it does a good job. Like, playing as Atreus is fun, because Kratos is more melee combat with some range combat mixed in. Atreus is more like range combat mixed with a little bit of melee when the enemy charges you or something. So you don't necessarily need to fight melee, but you can as Atreus, which I thought was really cool. And also Atreus's rage, I thought was really cool because it plays on how he is Loki. And I know that like I don't know much about Norse mythology or anything, but I do know that he can, I believe, can transform into animals. So that was pretty cool because this is a spoiler. I just spoiled it anyway. Whatever. His rage transforms Atreus into a wolf, and that's his rage. Now, the only thing I dislike about playing as Atreus is that some of the enemies felt very, I guess, almost dumbed down for Atreus or easier. Like they just didn't have as much of a health bar because Atreus is weaker than Kratos. But again, besides the point, and also Atreus does not have as much customizable equipment and stuff as Kratos does. Like when you switch Atreus's armor, nothing changes for him, just a different look. Which I understand why they did that, but I kind of wish I could change how like Atreus's bow attacks work, or like his arrows, like some of the effects of the arrows or something. If I changed his clothes, but you can't. That is totally just stagnant. But he does have his own skill tree again, so that's pretty cool. Another good part is you do get another companion. Like you get actually a few different companions in this game. Your like different companions you can have are Freya, Brock, and Sindri, but you cannot choose from them. It's all what the story depends on, like whatever the story wants at the time. Because obviously Brock and Sindri are your blacksmiths, so they're when you get them, they're out for a different reason than, I guess, like they're out there because less for fighting, but more to help you find whatever you're looking for or whatever. Where when Atreus and Freya are your companions, they are mostly long-term partners. Now Freya and Atreus switch back and forth a little bit, but kind of cool because Freya has a little bit of a different ability skill tree than Atreus, where she actually fights a good, like probably about a 50-50 melee range. So when you're actually fighting as Kratos, Freya will be fighting and staggering things and giving things stun while you're fighting something else. And then when you go to whatever she's fighting, you can also use her arrows. Like you can press your square to use her arrows, and that's pretty cool. That's a big plus though, having like different things than just Atreus. I think it was a good plus. The story was actually pretty good. Like the Aesir gods were cool, and I did hate like the bad guys of the game. I really did hate because they make them really easy to hate because they're just assholes just in general. Like they're just not nice people. It's very easy for you to latch onto the villains and want them to just flat out die or flatline, whatever you want to say, just them to no longer exist in that world because they're just rude. So that was definitely a plus in the game, was the villains were obviously really good. And that's what I expect from God of War because of how good 2018 was. Again, the only problem with the villains and stuff is that they're mainly Aesir, so you only get to fight them for about 2-3 minutes at the end of the game, or 2-3 hours at the end of the game, which again really sucks, including because they're just back-to-back boss battles. My favorite new character has to easily be Thor. I thought Thor was great. He was awesome. A close runner-up, though, would be, I guess... Nah, I'm gonna include her. Thrud, Thor's daughter, I thought was also really cool. She is fun. She is definitely a what's like fun personality to be around when you're playing as Atreus, because those two are friends or whatever in this game. So Atreus and Thrud do an adventure together. That was pretty cool because you get to see Thrud's naivety, however you say that, come through, where she's just rushing in and doing stuff, and that does come up to bite them in the butt a little bit, but again, I thought that was pretty cool. And obviously Thor is just awesome, just his design, how big, like Thor, when you fight Thor, like when Thor and Kratos fight, it's like two titans fighting each other. It's like having two like impenetrable forces just fighting each other just for the sake of it. And it is awesome. Like the starting battle where Kratos and Thor fight and their weapons clash and they create that frozen bolt of lightning. That frozen bolt of lightning is seen anywhere throughout the game as long as you're in Midgard. If you're in Midgard, you can see that from almost anywhere. And I think that is such an awesome detail because of how big that lightning strike is, and also just how impactful it shows just how impactful and how strong Thor and Kratos are, and just how much like destruction these two can bring when fighting each other. It is absurdly cool to watch. So I thought Thor was excellently done. Thrud was really awesome. But yeah, that's about what my thoughts on the game. There's not a whole lot I can think about. Like, I don't think it's as good as 2018. Like, I had more fun with 2018 story. This story is a lot darker, and or maybe not a lot darker, but it's definitely more. It made me more angry or more upset because like one of my favorite character died, and my second favorite character lost his marbles because of it, and I like that part a lot. But again, that was really late game. Atreus I thought was just a normal teenager, and that annoyed me because I remember being a teenager. That wasn't that long for me, and I remember being like that, so it's kind of cringe watching. And so that's definitely a like. I wish they could have done that a little bit better because in 2018 was obviously kind of a growing pain story where you're watching Atreus try to figure out and learn where he is in this world, what his role is. And 2018, he's still trying to do that. It just feels less impactful for him. But Kratos as a character, although I said he regressed at the start of the video, it's nice watching him actually change and learn and figure out what he's doing wrong, and teaching Atreus not to be like Kratos was a really awesome thing to see. Again, that really pays off at the end, but Kratos figures out that the way that the Spartans raised him was not a good way of raising a child. I mean, they basically just threw them into like a little arena, was like, kill everything or you die. Like, not a great way of raising a kid. And also, it's just really nice seeing Kratos learn to kind of get into that touch of humanity that he didn't necessarily have it in 2018, but it was kind of there. And then in Ragnarok, you get to see him really kind of develop and see his piece, like his humanity and his like that he's not just mean and he's not just a evil, revenge-filled, ash-covered man. He's more than that. He's got feelings and he's got the ability to learn and figure out right from wrong, and also figure out what he's doing wrong. Kratos figures out what he's doing wrong as a parent and how that's not working for Atreus, and how he needs to switch up his parenting style, and also how he needs to be more lenient with Atreus and learn how to basically trust his son so that the two of them can work together more. And again, seeing that payoff at the end of the game is amazing, including because I believe like right before you start the post game, you see Kratos cry, which was amazing. I loved watching him, like not like break down cry, but you watch a tear roll down his face if I am correct. And honestly, it was so impactful seeing how this man who is just always filled with rage and hate goes from being, just like I said, filled with rage and hate and just hating everything, to being able to finally show his softer side and kind of show that he's not just a cold husk of a man. He's actually got some feeling in there, and he can learn and change. That's basically the big thing, is that Kratos was able to change, and I think that is so awesome for him. Including showing a strong male character who was raised like basically as an average man should be, or he should be able to fight and be strong at every moment, no matter what, and not show his sad side or this emotion that he's been holding up and that he can show that to people. I think that was really good, including watching him develop into that. It's just really impactful. But anyway, that's that for the game. That's about all I want to talk about for the game now. And do I think you should pick it up? I mean, if you're just looking for God of War combat, like just straight up a hack and slash, this has hack and slash aspects. That's what I would say. Definitely got a lot of fighting in it, right? But it's not as much as 2018, and the combat just doesn't feel as good as 2018. I'm not sure if it was just that I was expecting maybe a little bit more, or I'm not sure what I was expecting exactly with the combat. Because I did say when I was waiting for the game to come out that all they have to do is just basically keep the old skills and maybe add some new ones, which I think they did one or two, but this wasn't enough for me, I guess. Including because you only get them at the very end of the game again. But so if you're looking for like a Sparta, like God of War 1, 2, 3, like the original God of War games, like their hack and slash and their combat, you aren't gonna get it with this game. If you're looking for 2018's like combat, it's still definitely there, but it just does something about it just doesn't feel right. So if that's all you really liked about God of War 2018, honestly, wait for this game to be on sale if it ever does go on sale, which it probably will. But just wait for it to go on sale. If you want a really good, like, if you're just a really big fan of the God of War series though, and you like both aspects of the story and the gameplay, you'll definitely like this game because there's a lot of story. All the side quests feel pretty fleshed out for the most part, and it is pretty fun. Like the game itself is fun, and it is fun watching Kratos and Atreus change. And honestly, I'm not sure if they're gonna do anything with like the God of War series anymore. I'm assuming so because it makes a lot of money for Sony. But besides the point. But I think about the game, like I honestly, I think if you're a big fan of God of War, like you love the game, like more like the story, and not just the combat. You like both the story and the combat. God of War Ragnarok's probably an easy pickup still, even if it's not as good as 2018 in my eyes. Although I would say it's arguably just as good in some aspects, if not better. But I would probably put it at like a 75%, 80%. I don't exactly know where to put it because there was lots of parts in it that I felt like sucked, and there was or not, maybe not sucked, sucks are even too harsh for the game. There was parts that were just not as good as the rest of the game. That's all. There was just some parts that were weaker. Not that they were like crap or garbage. There's just some parts that were a little weaker. Anyway, that's my review on God of War Ragnarok, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.